Welcome to our series called How to Win at Parenting. In our first lesson, we talked about how important it is to parent on purpose. If you haven't already watched that, go do that now.
Today, we're going to talk about creating the right environment in your home. So let's talk about that. So we're actually going to start today with the very first chapter in the Bible, Genesis chapter 1. God actually models for us this parenting principle. See, when he created the world, what he did was this. He created the earth and everything in it, everything that was necessary for life. And then on the sixth day, he put Adam and Eve there. So what he did was he created the environment first, and then he put people there. In Genesis 1:28, it says, "Then God blessed the people, and he said, 'Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it, reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground.'" God first built an environment that could promote life, and then he put living things there. Can you imagine if he tried to do it the other way around? Can you imagine if on day one he created Adam and Eve and they were just sort of suspending out there in space and they had no earth and they had no ground and they had no trees and they had nothing? That's not how it works. And that's not how it works for us as parents. If you want to be great at parenting, if you want to win at parenting, you have to really think about what kind of an environment should I create so that my kids and their life can flourish. That's what we're going to talk about.
Rather than creating an environment for growth, we often take it on ourselves to force growth to happen. Now, there's a temptation here as parents that we think about creating that right environment as about control, about forcing our kids into a certain thing and talking at them and kind of lecturing them. And the problem with that is it makes our kids very passive and it makes them just kind of listeners. And over time, as they get older, they start to shut us out, right? And our voice is just something that lulls them into sleep. So creating the right environment isn't about control and just forcing our kids to do something. It's about having conversations with them and having them start to own the reasons why you're telling them the things they should and shouldn't be doing. So it's not so much control as it is, I'm going to lead you and I'm going to teach you along the way, but you're going to start to interact and you're going to be a part of those conversations so you can start to own that in your own heart and mind. Because here's the truth, parents. What happens when our kids become teenagers and they're not around us all the time? They're with their friends at school and they're hanging out on the weekends. You're not there to tell them, you can't do that, you can't do this. So you've got to create something in their heart that the conviction is already in there. So when you're not around and they're faced with hard situations, they know the right thing to do.
All right, so your next question is, well, what does that environment look like? And there's probably a lot of answers to that. But for the sake of this video, we're going to just narrow it down to two key ingredients in a healthy environment at home. And the first key ingredient for creating an environment for growth is love. Love, after all, is the fundamental attribute of the God that we serve. And so if you're a Christian parent, if you really want to win at parenting, you have to bring love into your home so that your kids could know the God of love. 1 John 4 says it like this: "Dear friends, let us continue to love one another, for love comes from God. Anyone who loves is a child of God and knows God, but anyone who does not love does not know God, for God is love." Sometimes we can complicate the most basic things. You know, you can raise kids that get straight A's and get wonderful jobs and make lots and lots of money. But if at the end of the day you haven't taught them how to love, then really you failed as a parent. At least you failed as a Christian parent. In fact, there was a church in Corinth 2,000 years ago that thought they had it all together, but Paul writes to them and he says, "You guys are so dysfunctional because you're focusing on the wrong stuff." In 1 Corinthians 13, he says to them, "If I could speak in the languages of the earth and the angels, but I didn't love others, I would just be a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal." He said, "If I had the gift of prophecy and if I understood all of God's secret plans and possessed all this knowledge, but if I had such faith that I could move mountains but didn't love others, I would be nothing. If I gave everything I have to the poor and even sacrificed my body, I could boast about it, but if I didn't love others, I would have gained nothing." See, what Paul's saying there is, I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how gifted you are. I don't care about any of that stuff. If you don't love, you've missed it. So parents, don't miss this first, most fundamental key ingredient in a healthy home environment. You have to have love there. Now, you can check out some of the other resources below to learn more about what love looks like. We talk a little bit about the 3 T's of love in a healthy environment. But the key is make sure that love is there.
Now, love is important, but there's something else you need for an environment that can help your kids to flourish and grow. The second key ingredient for creating an environment for growth is truth. So here's the thing, love is important. Kids need to feel secure in that environment of love and acceptance. But truth is also important. Our kids need to understand that there should be a guiding force that determines our actions and the things that we value and we care about. So as parents, as much as we need to be loving our kids, we also need to be lovingly correcting them when they do wrong. We need to bring God's truth into the mix and to say, you know what, when you did this or when you told that lie, here's what God's word has to say about that. We have to call to account the mistakes and the sins that happen with our kids or even in our own life. Truth has to be also a part of that equation. Because otherwise, our kids grow up and could think, well, everything just kind of revolves around me. If it works for me, everything's fine. I feel loved. But the problem is, what if your actions of you feeling loved is actually hurting somebody else? So truth has to be a part of the mix that kind of creates the boundaries with which you operate as a family. And as you create that in your kids, that they go out into the world and they understand, I need to be loving, but I also need to be seeking God's truth in every situation. Look at what it says in the book of Deuteronomy. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you are going to bed and when you are getting up. Here's the truth. There's lots of voices, lots of messages that are out there in the world today. And if we don't keep God's truth before our kids and in our home, then those other voices may get louder and they're going to end up being the thing that creates the environment for our kids. So we should bring God's truth into every situation. In everything that we do, His word is always with us. When we get up, where we go, there should always be truth that's leading and guiding the way you are parenting your kids.
Now, in our home, the way we do truth and love is just through consistent conversation. You know, we've got 2 teenagers at home, a boy and a girl, and it's a lot of work, but we really do make this commitment to creating an environment where we love our kids. They know we love them. And then we create conversations all the time. We're doing the hard work of parenting, talking about the truth with our kids. Now, if you're sitting there watching this video and you say, man, I wouldn't even know how to do that. I don't even really know how to bring truth to bear on this topic or that topic or whatever. Well, that's what our resources online are all about. If you check out PursueGOD.org, all of those topics are there to help create conversations, to help bring truth into your home, and to help establish a conversational culture. One of the things that we do every Thursday night, we have one of the kids pick a topic from the website, and we talk about it. We use the questions underneath the video, and it's really helpful for us to create that culture where we're talking with our kids, we're bringing truth into their life. It's not all, hardcore Bible stuff, but all of it has a biblical worldview behind it because we want to teach our kids how to learn that and how to own it as their own. But at the end of the day, we can only do our part. My wife and I, our job is to create the environment where truth and love exist, and our kids have every opportunity to learn it and own it and embrace it. But they have to make their own decisions. They have to make their own choices. They have to be obedient. They have to choose to follow the God of the Bible like we're hoping that they will. And if they do, then we really think that's a huge win. Hey, don't forget to use the questions below to talk about this with a group or a mentor. And then go on to join us in the last lesson in this series on parenting, where we're going to talk about the stages of parenting. Turns out that there's transitions that happen at several different ages, and we'll talk all about that in the next lesson.